Hi, tonight's devotion carries on with that story of Moses. This one's called Let My People Go. Let my people go. That's probably what Moses said as he stood in front of Pharaoh. He was probably very nervous. He didn't want to be in Egypt. He wanted to be back home in the desert with his sheep and his wife and his kids. But there he was, standing in front of Pharaoh, saying exactly what God had told him to say. Let my people go. And do you know what Pharaoh said? He said, no. Rats. Okay. It was time for that neat trick with the scary stick snake. So Moses threw down his walking stick and boom, God turned it into a snake and back into a stick. Let my people go, he said again. And Pharaoh said, no. Double rats. Then God told Moses it was time to do something even more powerful than the stick snake. So he began to send plagues, one at a time, to show Pharaoh just how powerful he was. A plague is a really bad thing, like bugs or a bad rash or a really big storm, stuff you don't want happening in your town. God told Moses to dip his walking stick in the big river in Egypt, called the Nile. When his stick touched the river, all the water turned to blood. Let my people go, Moses said once again, and Pharaoh said, no. Then God said to Moses, hold up your stick. We're going to make frogs. And boom, frogs, millions of them, everywhere. The fields were covered with frogs. The roads were covered with frogs. There were frogs in people's houses, even in their beds. Let my people go, Moses said, trying not to step on a frog. And Pharaoh said, no. Next, God sent gnats, tiny little bugs that got everywhere. Then flies, zillions of flies, and then a sickness that killed all the farm animals. Next, all the Egyptians got sores on their skin, itchy, ouchy sores all over. Then there was hail, big balls of ice that fell from the sky and knocked down all the corn and the wheat and the rice plants. And then locusts, big bugs that looked like grasshoppers and ate all the crops that weren't killed by the hail. Each time, Pharaoh said, no. These plagues, the frogs and the flies and the locusts and the hail, weren't enough, so God turned out the lights. Egypt actually went dark. It was middle of the night dark in the middle of the day. The Egyptians couldn't see anything. Let my people go, Moses said to Pharaoh. At least he thought he was talking to Pharaoh. It was so dark it was hard to tell. But a voice from the darkness said, no. Finally, God knew exactly what he would have to do to change Pharaoh's mind. God told Moses it was time for the Egyptians to know how powerful he was. I'm going to send an angel who will kill all the oldest sons of Egypt, he said, and then Pharaoh will let my people go. Moses thought hard about this terrible thing. How will the angel know which sons are the children of Israel? Moses asked. God gave Moses a sign. Each Israelite family was to prepare a lamb for a special meal, and then take some of the blood of that lamb and put it over the door of their house. When the angel saw the blood of the lamb over the door, the angel would pass over that house. That Pharaoh's pretty stubborn, huh? Moses and the Israelites were unsure, but they followed God's direction. They put blood of the lamb over their doors. They ate the special meal, which is now called Passover. They did everything just the way God had said, and then they went to bed. But they didn't get much sleep. That night, an angel passed through all the streets of Egypt, and in the morning, all of the oldest sons of the Egyptians were dead. The Egyptians' moms and dads cried and cried. Even Pharaoh cried, because his son died too. It was terrible. When he was done crying, Pharaoh called for Moses. Can you guess what he said? He said, go. God showed the Egyptians just how powerful he was. He showed the children of Israel that he heard their cries and that he would keep the promises he had made to their father Abraham. But that's not all. God also gave a hint about his third promise, the blessing for the whole world. Someday, all of God's children would be saved from a death. All it would take would be the blood of a very, very special lamb. All right, it says fun facts. The Passover meal shared to honor the event consists of 6 items. Matzah, which is a flat bread, and it represents the Israelites' quick leaving from Egypt. Bitter herbs and romaine lettuce, and that represents the bitterness of slavery in Egypt. A sweet paste of fruit and nuts, representing the mortar used by the slaves to build in Egypt. A vegetable kind of like celery, symbolizing hope, dipped in salt water to represent the tears shed by the Israelites. And a roasted lamb, representing the sacrifice. And a roasted egg, the symbol of life. All right, now it's time to talk over some questions with your parents. Are you ready? Can you name all 10 of the plagues? This is a hard one. See if you can remember it together. Pause the video. What did the plagues show the Egyptians and the Israelites about God? Pause the video and talk about it. Okay, pray with me. Dear God, thank you for always protecting us by your great power. Amen. All right, I'll see you tomorrow night for a bedtime story.